All right, everyone, it's 1 o'clock here on the East Coast, and I'm going to put everybody on mute. Welcome. Everyone is now on mute, but when it comes time for questions or comments, I'll let you know how to request unmuting so we can call on you. My name is Waboy Gaderu, and I'm one of two citizen empowerment coordinators here at American Promise, and I want to welcome you to the May 2018 National Citizen Leadership Call, a call that happens on the second Saturday of every month. Thanks to all of you who have taken the time out of your busy weekends to join us today, or maybe you can't make it live and you're listening to the recording. Either way, you're stepping up to save our democracy, so thank you. And I'm excited to announce that we have started a brand new APA here in Wilmington, Delaware, and they'll be starting another. We'll be starting another APA in Long Valley, New Jersey later this month. And on this call, we are incredibly honored to have the awesome guest speaker, Sam Daley-Harris, who is the founder of Civic Courage and someone who's taught me a lot about citizen empowerment and how important it is to our work to get big money out of politics. Remember, last month we heard from two guest speakers, John Putner of Take Back Our Republic and Steve Lipscomb of Fix It America, who spoke to us about the importance of cross-partisanship in our journey to the 28th Amendment. Now, this call is focused on Lobby Day, which is the first of its kind for American Promise, where APA teams will meet with your members of Congress to build support for the 28th Amendment, and will form teams for those not in APAs as well. And this call is going to focus on everything you need to know about this exciting day. And as always, be thinking of questions to ask when we get to the question and answer section. And after hearing from Sam Daley-Harris, we'll hear a grassroots victory from a dynamic citizen leader, Catherine Castro of Central Minnesota, who was instrumental in the recent passage of a local resolution in her county. Then we'll talk about this month's action, which is writing letters to our U.S. senators on SJR 8, urging them to support this bill and to bring on more Republican co-sponsors. Because remember, in the history of the United States, no constitutional amendment has ever been won by a single party. And this cross-partisan approach is exactly how we'll win. So thank you, everybody who is stepping up, and if you're interested in learning more about what it takes to start an American Promise Association or an APA in your community, please feel free to send me an email at wambug@americanpromise.net. That's wambug@americanpromise.net. And I want to start by sharing this quote from Senator Nina Turner, a strong advocate for the 28th Amendment and member of the American Promise Advisory Council, who will be speaking at our National Citizen Leadership Conference next month. And she said, quote, "My hope for America and the activists is that they never, ever go back to sleep and keep fighting for social justice, equality, and decency." Let me repeat that one more time. My hope for America and the activists is that they never, ever go back to sleep and keep fighting for social justice, equality, and decency. And we've planned this call with a commitment to waking us up and keeping us awake. Remember, everyone on this call is dedicated to passing a 28th Amendment to get big money out of politics for a reason. Whether you're tired of oversized government corruption, upset about corporate greed in the face of deep economic inequality, you want sensible gun control, or you're concerned about a number of other issues that big money directly affects, you have chosen by being on this call to be a part of an active solution to many of these problems. So thank you for being courageous and choosing to be on the right side of history. And with that, it's my pleasure to turn it over to Ben Gubitz, who is the Associate Director of American Promise. Ben, you're off mute. How are you?
Hey, well, boy, how you doing?
Good.
Excellent. So hello to all. So thank you, boy, and hello to all. I hope everyone is doing well. Very excited to announce and introduce my good friend Sam Daley-Harris, who's joining us as a guest speaker today. Sometimes we do hit it out of the park when we match our guest speakers with the issue at hand. Sam organized his first lobby day in 1984, coincidentally the same year that I was born. And Sam founded the anti-poverty lobby called Results in 1980 and founded Civic Courage in 2012. Sam coached the Citizens Climate Lobby, which I'm sure many of you have heard on in its first 7 years, and is also author of Reclaiming Our Democracy, Healing the Break Between People and Government. And if you haven't checked out the book, I highly recommend that you do. Again, it's called Reclaiming Our Democracy, Healing the Break Between People and Government. So, Sam, before I kick it on over to you, I want to give you an idea of the kind of folks that are on this call. And I know you know many of these people, but you're really talking to some very inspiring folks, people like Laura Nittmeyer, who, in addition to starting her own APA in Montclair, New Jersey, has done a tremendous amount of work for American Promise and this issue for democracy. She's done tabling, like at the event that seeded the Tri-County New Jersey APA, and also seeded and is leading the launch of the Long Valley New Jersey APA in just about 10 days. And so she's doing incredible work. There's all kinds of folks on this line that are also doing incredible work, and that's just an idea of the kind of folks on this call. So, Sam, with that, I will kick it on over to you, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ben. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to speak with you today about the National Citizen Leadership Conference Lobby Day, or as we say for short, the NCLC Lobby Day. Most of the people on this call are members of an American Promise Association, an APA. What that means is most of you have taken the 4-part new group training or are in the process of completing it. What that also means is that most of you have already met with a member of Congress or their staff back home. So my focus won't be on how do you get a meeting or what do you do in a meeting. We have a special NCLC Lobby Day conference call series and a training doc primarily for non-APA members to answer those questions. The next training call will be Wednesday, May 23rd, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. Now, Azer and Waboy sent out the recordings of the 2 previous training calls with this month's action sheet yesterday, and on Monday they will send out the training document to everyone who registered for today's calls. Of course, during Q&A you can ask any question you want. I want to make a few points before we get to Q&A. If you are in an APA, do everything you can to get as many of your APA members or almost members to the NCLC and Lobby Day, really. If you can drive down together or share a hotel room together or do a fundraiser together or sponsor someone yourself to get more of your APA members and other local folks to the NCLC, do it. It will be an experience that will likely blow your mind. Number 2, a number on this call have met with your member of Congress or their staff, and many of you had never done that before joining your APA. You've been through the practice and the nervousness before the meeting itself, and what usually is the amazing joy and sense of accomplishment afterward. Well, I just want to say that doesn't compare in any way to meetings on Capitol Hill. When you walk by the Capitol Dome on your way to the House or Senate office building, and you pass others with their NCLC name badges on, and then you walk down the hallways and you see the names of representative after representative or senator after senator, and then you find your representative's office or your senator's office, and you walk in and talk to the receptionist, letting them know you're there for your meeting. It really takes the whole experience to another level. So be there and bring as many as you can. With that in mind, make sure you're clear and that Azer and Waboy are clear about who the liaison is with each office, each representative liaison in your group, each senator liaison in your group, and that the liaisons are setting up the meetings for Monday, June 25th. If you're not in an APA and you are coming to the NCLC Lobby Day, check with Azer and Waboy to see if there's someone already setting up a Lobby Day meeting with your member of Congress or your senators, or if not, whether you can be the liaison for one or more of those offices. AZOR's email address is AZORC, at AmericanPromise.net. 4, if your APA has members from 1 or 2 congressional districts and there's a third or another congressional district nearby, see if you can get someone from that district to come to the NCLC and Lobby Day with you, or if they can't, if they would set up a meeting for you with their congressional aide. One last thing on this. If you're coming to Lobby Day on Monday, June 25th, and it's possible for some or all of your group to stay through Tuesday, June 26th, to meet with more congressional offices from your state, then do that. You should still check with Azor and Waboy to make sure there isn't already another attendee setting up any of those meetings. So I want to say something about Lobby Day asks, the requests that we'll make of members of Congress, House and Senate, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. You don't have to get all of this down because we'll have more training and materials on this leading up to the NCLC Lobby Day and during the NCLC itself. The requests or asks will be different for House Democrats than the ones for House Republicans, and different for Senate Democrats than the requests for Senate Republicans. And their primary asks, or the main asks, and secondary asks. So here they are for Lobby Day. If you're going into an office of a House Democrat, the primary ask is that they co-sponsor HJ Res 48 and HJ Res 31. So that's the primary ask for House Democrats. Here's the secondary ask. If they're already a co-sponsor, we'll thank them and we'll ask them to write a letter to the editor or op-ed about the legislation to educate their constituents, or to participate in a briefing or town hall meeting in the district on overturning Citizens United. Another secondary ask, I'm not sure we've nailed this completely, we hope and think this will be another secondary ask, is that they or their staff attend a briefing the next day, June 26th, by John Pudner and Jeff Clements. And the third ask, secondary ask, is this. If you're meeting with an aide, you'll ask for their help getting a meeting with the member of Congress back home. So if you're meeting with a House Republican, the primary ask won't be right now HJ Res 48 or 31. The primary ask will be that they be a lead or an initial sponsor on a House Republican resolution on this issue, and we'll have draft language for you to share about that. The secondary asks are all pretty much the same. Attend a briefing by John Pudner and Jeff Clements the next day, June 26th, and if you're meeting with an aide, we'll ask their help in getting a meeting with the member of Congress back home. Primary ask for meetings with a Senate Democrat is that they co-sponsor SJ Res 8, the resolution that we're writing letters to on today. Now, there are about 48 Democratic senators who've co-sponsored SJ Res 8 already, so we'll thank them and move to the secondary ask, which is they write a letter to the editor or op-ed to educate the constituents or participate in a briefing or town hall meeting in the state on overturning the Citizens United. The other two secondary asks are the same, and I'll skip them for the moment and go to meetings with Senate Republicans. The primary ask of a Senate Republican, like a House Republican, will be that they lead or be an initial sponsor of a Senate Republican resolution on this issue, and we'll provide you with draft text. And I'll explain this in Q&A if you're wondering, well, wait, why that? Why are we doing it that way? Again, the secondary asks are the same, going to a briefing with John Pudner and Jeff Clements the next day, and if you're meeting with an aide, that they help in securing a meeting with the senator back home. We've got lots of time for questions because I think my section was brief. So I'm going to stop there and just turn it back over to Ben or Waboy or whoever is going to take this over.
Thank you so much, Sam. We're going to do Q&A now. So if you have a question, just go ahead and press the number 1 on your keypad so I know to call on you. And when I do, let us know where you're calling in from and what your question is. So just press the number 1 on your keypad, and I will call on you, and you can ask your question. I guess everybody's just experts at Lobby Day.
Or
no
just
questions
stunned.
for Sam. Oh, you know what? I think I see a hand up here. Azer, your hand is up. What's your question and where you're calling in from?
Yep. It's Azer Cole calling in from Mamaroneck, New York, and I just want to take you up on that offer, Sam, to quickly explain the difference between introducing a bill and introducing a resolution in the context of what we're asking for.
Okay, well, actually, what I'd like to address, if that's okay with you, is now why are we asking Republicans to be an initial or lead sponsor on a Republican House resolution on this bill? Why aren't we just asking them to co-sponsor HJ Res 48 and 31? Essentially, we're taking the lead here from some other groups, and actually groups I've worked with, the Quaker Lobby, FCNL, and then also Citizens Climate Lobby on the climate issue, where they started on climate with a resolution for Republicans only, essentially expressing that climate is man-made and the like. But there was so much fear from Republicans to put their name on anything with the word climate in the title. They decided to get a resolution only for Republicans, and they only introduced it when there were 8 co-sponsors. Now it's, I think, something like 22 House Republicans on that climate resolution. So where I'm going with here, I think the number is something there are 165 co-sponsors on the various HJ Reses, SJ Reses in Congress, the resolutions, and only one of them is a Republican. And actually, to my understanding, some Republicans don't consider that one much a Republican. So the point is there's safety in numbers, and we're taking our lead from this other issue and working to introduce a House Republican resolution on money in politics and this issue that we're working on, in hopes that in the weeks or months that follow Lobby Day, there will be a House Republican resolution with, I'm making up a number, 8 or 10 co-sponsors, and that the courage to take stands on this issue without hiding behind the fear that the Koch brothers will primary you or fund your opponent, etc., which was a similar fear on the climate issue, is something that I think we have a shot at. And I want to make one other point, and I'm going to stop. The main point of the Lobby Day is not to just have a great meeting and goodbye, we're done, enough already. Well, we want some of that, of course, a great meeting. The main purpose of a Lobby Day meeting is to build or continue to build a relationship, a deep relationship, a respectful and respected relationship with your elected officials, so that you can move them wherever they are. If they're supporters, you move them to being advocates and leaders and champions. If they're frankly opposed, you move them through the trust that you begin to build, you move them from being opposed to being neutral and eventually to being a supporter, et cetera. So I'll stop there, and hopefully that's been useful to why we're making this different request of House and Senate Republicans than the requests we're making of Democrats.
Thank you so much, Sam. We have another question here. Travis, you are unmuted. What's your question and where are you calling in from?
So yes, I'm Travis calling in from Claymont, Delaware, though technically I'm in Pennsylvania right now. I was just wondering regarding all these different asks and who you're talking to, like how you adapt your strategy. Is there a document with this somewhere? Is it in that Lobby Day document, or is it that action sheet that you sent out?
Well, these asks, for example, will be in documents that people receive leading up to and certainly at the NCLC. So you don't have to worry about that. So we'll make sure that these asks are on paper and in your hands. We'll have leave-behinds that when the meeting's over, you can leave key documents behind with the different congressional offices. So we're going to work really hard to make sure you don't feel like you're winging it, but that you've been prepared, you have the materials in your hand that you need to study and the like. So I'm going to leave it there and see if there's another question. There's more I want to say about the training we'll do on at the NCLC, but let's see if there's another question.
If you have a question, feel free to just press the number 1 on your keypad, and I will take you off mute.
And if there's not, I have one more thing I'd like to add to Travis and really for everyone. Is there another question yet?
There is. Laura, you are unmuted. Where are you calling in from, and what's your question?
I'm calling from Orange County, California. What do we do if our representative is refusing to meet with us?
Well, here's the deal. Are you saying that you're going to NCLC and Lobby Day, and you've made a request to meet with your member of Congress, or frankly, if you're from California, these meetings are on Monday, so the member of Congress might be flying back on Monday, and so you might be meeting with the aide. Are you saying that you've not been able to get a meeting on June 25th in D.C., or are you saying separately back home you've been trying to get a meeting and you haven't gotten one? I don't know which one it is.
It's the second.
Okay, great. Tell me what you've done. Tell me, like, your strategy, briefly. We've called and made requests many times over many months. We've filled out the form on their website or whatever they ask for setting up a meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a part of a group, and we've a number of members. We've called, we've requested meetings. We have gone to the office. We've filled out forms. All we really get back is, because we're on a mailing list, is kind of we're the enemy. She needs more money because we're coming after her. They're very hostile to us. They will hang up on some people who I admit are probably pretty hostile to them too. So it's become a very
great. This is great. This is very clear. Yeah, this is very clear and very adversarial kind of relationship. Here's my suggestion. It's something I urge you to entertain, and that is that you talk to Azer or Woboy about the possibility of setting up an APA where you live. Now, it may be something you don't want to do right now, but here's why. One of the groups, I've coached American Promise for about a year and a half. One of the other groups I coached for 7 years was Citizens Climate Lobby. Now, Citizens Climate Lobby is in a similar kind of antagonistic issue when you talk Democrats and Republicans. I want to say that last year, their volunteers had 1,653 meetings with members of Congress and their staff, and I would be shocked, I'm assuming your congressperson is Sanchez, I would be shocked if they've not met with your congressperson, number one. And number two, they've gotten 37 Republicans and 37 Democrats to join a House Climate Solutions Caucus when 3 years ago you couldn't have gotten one Republican to put their name on anything with climate in the title. Now, where I'm going with this is what my invitation to you is to consider the notion of starting an APA, talking to Woboy and Azer, and get the training that we are providing and that we will continue to provide to change the scenario you're talking about, that we can't get a meeting. They won't have a meeting with us. That's my best suggestion. I've seen it over and over and over. I've not seen it in a really resistant anger setting. No, that actually doesn't work. But but I know it can work because I've seen it over and over. Well, boy, is there any other question before we go on? Actually, I'm going to go ahead.
Sam. Virginia, you are unmuted. Where are you calling in from, and what is your question?
Yes, I'm calling in from Salt Lake City, and Salt Lake City persons are contemplating participating in the American Promise effort. The question that I have is Senate Joint Resolution, or Senate Resolution 8, is a weak, very much weakened version or suggestion of move to amend proposed 28th Amendment, which has specific language. If American Promise is in fact aiming for cross-partisanship, why does American Promise not work with the Democrats in the Senate, and why does not American Promise work on SJ8 rather than introducing an independent Republican resolution? Ultimately, the question is, are the philosophical differences between Democrats and Republicans with regard to Citizens United so unbridgeable that the Republican-oriented American Promise cannot work with move to amend?
Okay, I thought I heard two questions. You're going to have to clarify it for me, and I do urge you to have a private conversation with Azer or Boy on the very details. My expertise is empowering citizens. Because I do that with issues like global poverty, reversing climate change, overturning Citizens United, preventing nuclear war with North Korea. Those are the groups I work with. I don't work with them on the issue. I work with them on the citizen empowerment piece of it. So I wasn't clear if your question was, why is SJ Res 8 weak? I don't know if that was the question. Or if the question was, well, why would Republicans have their own resolution? Is there something watered down that they need in order to have something work that way? Can you clarify whether it was one of those or both of those?
Well, yes. Empowering citizens, I appreciate that, Sam. It appears to me that American Promise is all about empowering Republicans rather than being cross-partisan. Having reviewed the Pudner document that was shared with the last month's conference, I didn't see a whole heck of a lot of Democrats represented in the people that American Promise and Pudner are orienting toward. You, Sam, I'm wondering, what is your orientation toward empowering Democrats and working with Move to Amend, which has, in fact, specific language with regard to a 28th Amendment and are working already and have been, as members of American Promise know? Why is your organization, or why is there not an effort, perhaps on your part, to also empower Democrats by reaching across to Move to Amend in a cross-partisan fashion?
Yeah, okay, to be honest, I don't really understand the question. What I'm getting at is there are about 165 Democrats on the various resolutions on overturning Citizens United and only one Republican. And so what's broken there is that gap. That's the thing that's needing most fixing. And so what we as volunteers, what we as citizens, and in this case, what we as activists are weakest at, that what we need to grow at the most is flexing the muscle of what the heck do I say to have a conversation with my Republican representative or my Republican senator so that we can stop being at loggerheads and we can actually make some progress on this issue. The broken piece is, in a sense, oversimplified, isn't the Democratic side, it's the Republican side, and who do we have to be to really heal that and mend that and move forward as slowly but surely as some of the climate groups are doing with Republicans in the House. So I know we're out of time now, and so I'm going to turn it back to Waboy and thank everyone for these great and challenging questions, and just wish you all the best on Lobby Day on June 25th in Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much, Sam. Your insights are so well needed, and thank you. And I'm sure we're going to have an excellent lobby day, and I'm excited to see everybody in action that day. And before we get to our grassroots victory, I want to start with some actions taken recently. So last year, APA members had 17 meetings with their elected officials or their staff. And so far, APA members have had 20 meetings. And by the way, our goal for 2018 is 100 meetings, which I know will smash because of our lobby day this June. So super exciting. Last year there were 26 media pieces published, and so far this year there have been 33 media pieces published. And our goal is to have 106 media pieces published in 2018. And this is all to say there are a growing number of people who are super passionate about fighting for a government that represents us, the people, and we're making incredible progress. And we want to make sure that we know about your meetings with elected officials and your media pieces if they're published, so we can include them in our total for next month. So if you've had a meeting with your elected official or their staff, or had a media piece published, this could be a letter to the editor, this could be a local news article that you appeared in about your efforts with American Promise, please send it to us. And you can actually go to the Take Action part of our website, AmericanPromise.net. Click on the Take Action drop-down menu, and you'll see Citizen Uprising reporting forms. And you can just use that form to let us know about your media piece, your public event, or a local resolution that's happening. We want to stay up to date and connected with what you all are doing. And the growth that we're seeing in these numbers is really exciting and indicative of the more and more people who are stepping up and getting involved to get big money out of politics. And I'm now going to pass it over to Catherine Tasto, who is an incredible citizen leader from Minnesota. And after learning about American Promise from Vicki Barnes, who's another leader in Minnesota, Catherine was able to play a huge role in getting a local resolution for the 28th Amendment passed in Sherburne County, which is one of the most conservative counties in the entire state. So it's my distinct pleasure to pass it over to Catherine. Catherine, give me 1 second to take you off mute. Okay, Catherine, you're off mute. No problem.
Yes. Thank you. So would you like me to just speak to what I did in Sherburne County, or do you have specific questions for me?
Nope, just go ahead and speak from your heart.
Okay, so I'm one of those millions of people who have not been politically active until the election. And when Vicki Barnes came to one of our Indivisible meetings and presented, I knew right away that this was something I wanted to engage in, because I do see too much money in politics as the root cause of most of these issues that we're fighting. So I jumped on board with Vicki, learned a lot. I came into this knowing almost nothing and did a lot of research. I'm retired, so I'm able to spend the time doing that. And it was enjoyable, but at times really depressing and overwhelming. The amount of influence that money has in our government is actually a little bit sickening. So, getting through that part of it at times. But at any rate, we approached our commissioners in Sherburne County. We were fortunate to have two commissioners in a very conservative area of the state. I mean, we're talking about Michelle Bachmann territory here. Two of our conservatives were very supportive of our efforts, so we started with them. They gave us some guidance as to who might be more difficult, so we met with that commissioner one-on-one, asked to get onto the agenda. We were on the agenda, gave our first presentation, which did not go well. It was very confusing to the commissioners, so this is a learning experience for us. We were invited back to do another presentation, which was very welcomed. And then that's when I reached out to the commissioners and said, okay, what are you looking for here? What should we focus on? I also got in touch with the Director of Health and Human Services in our county who gave me some guidance too. So I prepared a new presentation and we went again in front of the board. It took about 10 to 15 minutes, but I'll tell you, the energy in that room was amazing. And at the same time, while we were getting ready to present, we were getting in touch with residents in any way we could through phone calls. I made many one-on-one phone calls. We sent out emails. We were on Facebook saying, show up at this board meeting. We need bodies in the room. So when the time came to present, it went really well. Got a lot of compliments from people, compliments from the commissioners. One in particular, who has been on the board a long time, said that this is very rare for him to see so many citizens involved in an initiative, contacting him, showing up, and was quite impressed with the turnout and the initiative itself. So when the vote finally came, which was a third meeting, we got as many people there as we could, and the vote was 4-0. I'd like to call that a unanimous vote. However, one commissioner was absent, but it was a victory. So it was wonderful to be a part of the process. It was great for me to be in a position where I was presenting to my local elected officials. It was very empowering. I found my voice, which I really didn't know I had politically. And to know that a group of small group of people can have such an impact. And while I realize this is a very small step, it's a small step towards a big effort. And I'm proud to say that Sherburne County is the first county in Minnesota to pass or approve of this resolution. And we've now moved into Wright County. In fact, just finished up a meeting here this morning with residents here in Wright County, which is right across the Mississippi River from Sherburne County, another very conservative, perhaps the most conservative county, it could be argued, in Minnesota. And people here are geared up, ready to contact commissioners, ready to put their presentations together, ready to call their neighbors, start getting the word out that this initiative is going on now in Wright County. So it's very exciting. It's very rewarding. It has its ups and downs, but well worth it. And I'm just really happy to be a part of this movement. And I look forward to a victory again and again and again in Minnesota. And then finally, of course, the big win, and that will be when the amendment is passed and ratified.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Your story gives all of us so much hope and inspiration. Congratulations to you and your team on your great work. And if there's anybody on the call who is not yet in an APA and wants to learn more about starting one, please send me an email at wambuig@americanpromise.net. That's wambuig@americanpromise.net. And I'm now going to turn it over to our other Citizen Empowerment Coordinator, Azer Cole. Hey, Azer.
Hey, Woboy, and hey, everyone. And before we get going, I just want to say, whoa, Catherine, I know you've been working with Woboy, and I'm a little bit jealous that I'm not working with you in Minnesota. That was just incredible to have heard, sort of in passing conversations about what's going on there, and then to hear it from you and how that first meeting didn't go great and you followed up, and now you're following up your victory with duplicated efforts. I'm just blown away and really want to say thank you for that incredible grassroots victory. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of the training and action portion of the call. And before we get to the training, I just want to remind folks that this month we're writing letters to our U.S. senators asking them to co-sponsor SJ Res 8. And if they have already co-sponsored the bill, we'll ask them to take their commitment a step further by sharing their support in a letter to the editor or an op-ed, or by working with your APA to speak at a public event on the 28th Amendment, or working across the aisle to bring a Republican on board if this senator is a Democrat. And these relationships and building these relationships are really how we're going to have the major breakthroughs to win the 28th Amendment. So detailed instructions for these letters are on your action sheet that you received in an email yesterday if you registered for this call. And remember that these letters are also great. They're great to send in, but they're also really good things to make copies of and actually bring with you to in-person meetings that you have with your senators down the road. And I know a lot of people on this call are planning on attending the National Citizen Leadership Conference and Lobby Day from June 22nd to the 25th in Washington, D.C. And copies of these letters will really make your meetings with your senators on Lobby Day or in your home district on another day that much more powerful. So now we're just going to take it a step deeper and actually do a role play practicing a section of the meeting with your senator. And maybe you're preparing for your meeting on Lobby Day, or maybe you're not able to attend Lobby Day but still want to meet with your senator in their in-state office. So either way, it's important to practice making your asks specifically. So this is what we're going to do. Please press 2 on your keypad if you are the brave volunteer who is going to get everybody else off the hook here. And in this role play, I'm going to be your senator. You're going to be you in the meeting. And the meeting so far has gone spectacularly. You've already laid out the asks sort of initially at the beginning. You've thanked your senator for something. You've shared a personal story about why this work is so important to you. You've given them specifics about the 28th Amendment, asked them some leading questions, and heard from them, sort of their perspective on the problem of money in politics, and gotten a little bit of a better sense of what they think in their own words. So you can reiterate again why this work is so needed. And really all that's left in the meeting is to make the ask. So remember, as Sam said, the overarching goal of these meetings is really to build a relationship with this person, but that certainly doesn't mean that we are going to shy away from asking them for specifics. And them saying no doesn't mean that we failed. It really just means that we're going to try again later. So again, if your senator is a Democrat, we're going to assume for the purpose of this role play that they're a co-sponsor already of SJR 8, the current leading 28th Amendment bill in the Senate. That's SJR 8, and currently 41 out of the 47 Democratic senators are co-sponsors. Your secondary asks could be, would you write an op-ed or a letter to the editor on the subject? Would you work across the aisle to bring a Republican on board? And of course, especially if you're meeting with an aide, can you help schedule a meeting, a follow-up meeting, once we're back home in whichever state you may be from? If your senator is a Republican, we're going to assume that they're not a co-sponsor of SJR 8. Currently, there's not one Republican co-sponsor of SJR 8. And as Sam was saying, they likely are wary of co-sponsoring a bill with all Democrats. So for this initial ask, we're going to ask them to introduce their own resolution, either themselves or with other Republicans. And as a secondary ask, similar to our secondary ask with the Democrats, we're going to ask them for a follow-up meeting at a later date in our home state. So again, press 2 on your keypad. If you're ready to do this role play, I've got a feeling there's probably a ton of hands up, and we might even have to draw straws. So, well, boy, has anyone brave pressed 2 on their keypad, and I promise it won't be the worst thing in the world.
You know what, Azer? We do have a brave volunteer. Catherine, you are up. Where are you calling in from?
Minnesota.
Excellent.
Catherine, is that Catherine
Azer,
Castro?
take it away. It is.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, my gosh. They tell you not to meet your heroes, Catherine. So you're from Minnesota. and tell me just a little bit about which senator of yours you'd like me to pretend to be, and just 1 or 2 sentences about them.
Okay, Amy Klobuchar, who is a Democrat and well loved in Minnesota. who has initiated a ton of legislation and it has a gift for reaching across the aisle, I believe.
Fantastic. Senator Klobuchar. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. So we're in the role play now. We're in the meeting. We're sitting across from each other. It's going really well so far. You've thanked me for something. This I really liked. You shared your personal story about why you're passionate about this work. Maybe you've talked about what you're doing locally in Sherburne County and what you've already accomplished. I'm very impressed. You've asked me some open-ended questions, which have allowed me to talk about the problem of money in politics in my words, which has given you a pretty good sense of where I stand on this issue. So we're going to jump in now, and this is me as the senator speaking. And I'm saying, well, Catherine, let me just say, this has been sort of a different meeting than most constituent meetings I usually have, and I'm impressed. But I figure that you've probably got some specific things, I know you mentioned them at the beginning of the meetings, that you'd want to bring up again before we run out of time here. Is that right?
Yes, thank you.
And so specifically, go ahead.
Yeah. Specifically, I'd like to make an ask that in Minnesota, we do not have a ballot initiative, which is unfortunate because a ballot initiative is a wonderful way to educate the public about what is actually going on with the issue. And so I would like, Senator Klobuchar, if you would consider holding some type of town meeting in the metro area or the outstate area in an effort to educate the public, to tell the public why you support this effort and why you think the 28th Amendment is a solution to getting corruption out of government.
Well, first off, just let me say that these type of public town hall events, this is really what inspired me to get into politics in the first place. I think that constituent elected official relationship and visibility is really at the heart of our democracy. And I really like the idea of what you've just introduced. I'm curious, would you and the folks you're working with be able to help me plan this at all, or is this something that you guys would just come to?
I would love to be a part of planning it.
Perfect. So that will be a huge help for me and my staff. And if you want to just send an email with some specifics, I know you've been in contact with my legislative aide scheduling this meeting. That's how we'll really get the ball rolling there. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up now that we've got each other here?
If you would consider it, reaching out to the press, particularly the Minneapolis Star-Trib, and perhaps asking their political editor if they wouldn't do a feature story on the movement in Minnesota. As you know, Senator Klobuchar, we have been moving into outstate areas. We know that Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Duluth, the big metro areas, have been on board in this movement for several years, but we are now getting into the outstate areas, and I believe that that's newsworthy. So if you or your staff could take the initiative to reach out to news outlets and to start spreading the story, again, this would help to educate the public about the amendment and the issues that are tied to that. That would be greatly appreciated as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that I'm passionate about because my constituents are passionate about it. Case in point right here with this meeting. And I'd encourage you guys, much like the same, to, spread the word on your end as well. And we can really have a big impact. Thank you, Catherine. And thanks for taking the time. I've got to run to another meeting, but it was so nice meeting with you. Unless there's anything left on your list, thank you so much. An honor to be your senator.
Thank you, and I will be in touch with your staff, Senator. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Catherine, give yourself a round of applause, and then after you've done that, tell me how you think you did. If there's anything you would change, if there's anything you went particularly well.
I think, the call today is I feel a bit unprepared, but I think I would have done my research before I came in, to the role play. I would have contacted the Star Trib myself to find out who that particular political editor would be so that I could drop a name. And then even with the town hall idea, I think I would do some research as to what town halls she's already held so that I could reference that. Say, for example, 3 months ago you held a town hall, blah, 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 and, tie that, reference something that she's already done into the ask for another one.
Yeah, it's we're doing these practice role plays not because, we're going to get this perfect the first time and then replicate it. It's because we're going to learn from it. And I really liked that you were able to talk about the work you guys are already doing. I mean, you clearly know a fair amount about this person. The two things that I would have recommended maybe leading with before asking her, the follow-up question about media outreach is saying, and do you have any relationships, whether it's with Minnesota members of Congress or even state representatives in the state of Minnesota on the Republican side who you think would be amicable to just a conversation about this from you. This really is a cross-partisan issue, and I think that's a very important component of these, particularly because you said she had a history of working across the aisle.
Right.
The second thing,
yeah, go ahead.
The second thing I thought would have been particularly dynamite, if you are making that media ask, is if you had, maybe it's a letter to the editor that you'd had published, or maybe it's an article in the newspaper which had been written about the Sherburne County resolution. I know I saw a couple. If you had one of those printed out, gave that to her first, and then made the ask to ask if she'll do something, I think she'd be very impressed and even happier to help.
Good ideas. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. That was just fantastic. Big thank you. Great.
Excellent.
Well, I'll pass it back to you, Waboy. And thank you again, Catherine, and thank you again, all of you guys, for everything that folks are doing. It's really incredible, and I'm blown away.
Thank you so much, Azer, and thank you, Catherine. We do have a few extra minutes here, so if you have a question for Sam or Azer or myself about Lobby Day or anything that we've talked about, feel free. Just press the number 3 on your keypad, the number 3, and I will call on you. Just press the number 3. I will unmute you, and we can have a couple more questions here. All right. Olivia, you are unmuted. Where are you calling in from, and what's your question?
Hi, I'm from Brookline, Massachusetts, and we're working on the ballot initiative that we expect to have on the November ballot. My question is, when I plan to attend the conference in Washington, D.C., but really I don't know anyone from Massachusetts. And the people who are working on the initiative in my area are working on things such as the November, trying to tip the House and Senate. And so they're working so much on that they are not taking time to go to the conference. My question is, since I don't know anybody, how can I get into contact with others from the state of Massachusetts? We have very responsive senators, and my congressman is Joe Kennedy III. We have met with him on other issues or his legislative aid, and they're wonderful people, but I'm just I'm not sure what I should be doing in my position as the lone person from Brookline.
Well, thank you so much, Lydia, for your question. Sam or Azer, do you want to take that?
Well, yeah, let me go ahead, Azer.
Okay. That's the exact right question. And one of the things that I started doing just this week and I'm going to be continuing doing is looking through the, people who've registered not only for the NCLC, but for Lobby Day too. And I can tell you, there's about 6 or 7 folks that I saw who are from Massachusetts who might be in the same exact boat as you. So early next week, Boy or myself are going to be connecting you with them. We're doing this with folks all across the country. When we say, there's 2 people in Ohio, going to connect someone in Columbus with Ellen Green Bush up in Port Clinton so they can both go to meet with Senator Bob Portman. And we're going to figure out, who's ready to be the liaison, going to schedule those meetings with your members of Congress. Maybe you've got different members of Congress in the House. You certainly have the same 2 senators. So I'm glad you asked that question because I think other people are in the same position. And the answer is that Boy and I, just in the next couple days, and really as people continue to register from Massachusetts, we're going to be looping you together with them. Anything else you'd like to add, Sam?
Yeah, and yet she can reach directly out to you today in an email and just say, I'm coming. Here's where my congressman's name. Is there anyone else already setting up that meeting? And if not, then Azer can say, you can be the liaison to set up that meeting. Yep. He can make sure you have the training calls and training doc to help you set up that meeting and the like. The last thing is you said, our members of Congress here are really supportive, they're really on this issue or kind of thing. So our job is to get our supportive members of Congress to be advocates and to get our advocate members of Congress to be leaders on this issue and eventually champions. So this is a great question.
Thank you so much, Azer and Sam. Monica, you are unmuted. Where are you calling in from and what's your question?
Hi, Monica. I'm calling in from Montclair, New Jersey. And I just wanted to go back to something that kind of came up earlier. And I think one reason that many of us are asking this is because we're feeling this pressure or maybe lost opportunity. Are the groups American Promise and Citizens United and Move to Amend coordinating in any way? I mean, they have hundreds of thousands of members. We have hundreds of thousands of members. And from the people point of view, it just seems like if we could all get together and coordinate in some way. I mean, we don't have to work tight together. We don't have to work closely together, but, in some way come together and show that when you put these groups together, this is millions of people. And, if we're not working together, then could you please, let us know why, what your trepidation is? I mean, if there is very good reason for it, that's fine. We just need to understand sort of what the situation is.
Yep, I'm happy to take this one if that's all right, Boy and Sam. And hey, Monica, nice talking with you. And I'll start with, I'll address each of the 2 groups, and I'll start with End Citizens United because, their model is much different. They're primarily going about this issue by fundraising and fundraising for Democratic candidates, for Democrats. It's a much different strategy. It's a partisan approach. It's not with citizen lobby. It's with sort of playing within a broken system where you need lots and lots of money to be elected. So, End Citizens United is sometimes supportive of, cross-partisan ballot initiatives, ballot measures, but the day-to-day citizen lobbying work doesn't rely so much on the work that they're doing. Now, to the issue of coordinating with groups like Wolfpack, with groups like Move to Amend specifically, the answer is certainly. We are coordinating. We are working, similarly, not exactly the same strategically on this issue. Move to Amend is advocating specifically around HJR 48 in the House. There's not a Senate version currently introduced in the Senate. And as you know, American Promise's organizational standpoint at this point in the movement is we're going to be less focused on narrowing in on one specific piece of legislation at the moment. We are focused on building the political power, getting as many folks interested and engaged around the general problem so that we do have the political power to coalesce around one specific piece of legislation. I was just in Ohio a couple of weeks ago, presenting alongside Jeff with a audience. A lot of people new to the issue, a lot of people seasoned and very knowledgeable of the issue. Many move to amend folks, and the follow-up there is we're working together in Cincinnati and Columbus specifically, coalescing our energies and having conversations about, well, how do we make the most out of the bounty of resources and energy folks have? I hope that answers your question, because it's a good one and is going to be vital as we continue to amass the really large amount of political power to do something of this magnitude, which is really exciting.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Azer. Thank you all for all of those great questions. It's 2 p.m. here on the East Coast, so if you're with your members, when we hang up, please write and send your letters to your senator. And thank you for your commitment and partnership, and we're all working together to pass this amendment. All right, so I'm going to take everybody off mute. 1 second. And we could say goodbye. And we will talk very soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Have a good day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.